What is going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of HUDSON. This right here, as you all know by now, is the podcast where we dive in to the deep, dark, murky waters with a plethora of legendary guests. I am, of course, your host, your bastard of ceremonies, the number one scumbag, Rex Ruger. That's REXXX. You might also know me as the King of Sleaze, a.k.a. the hair metal high priest, and most importantly, of course, a.k.a. Diamond David Lee Roth Jr. That's right. Take a look, folks. It should be quite evident, and DNA testing is almost conclusive. Spoke to my lawyers today, and everything is progressing. The wheels of justice are turning, and it will prove once and for all what we've all known all along, that you are looking at the son of glam, the front man for the band. Just smoked a few grams. I got 1 million fans. I'm your ice cream man, Mr. Wop Bop a Loo Bop a Wop Bam Bam Shazam Hot Damn. Feeling good? And of course, everybody in the house, especially me, and my beautiful audience, looking good. For me, you know how I get to quaff like Roth. Right here, kids. Coming to you, as always, from the lush lavender lounge of love, joined as always by the great Keith Hernandez Puppet. This is the No Frills podcast. You don't get no frills, but you do get plenty of thrills. And that is looking at this mug, the second greatest metal frontman to ever do it. Believe that. Still looking for virtuoso level players for my glam sleaze metal passion project, Love Sword. So if you think you got the chops, hit me up if you dare. No, serious inquiries only. Of course. You can't be the front man. There can only be one of those, and that is moi. But you can be the backing band that sits behind the man. If you play your cards right, of course. It's a big job. I know it's intimidating. You know, when you're staring into the eyes of greatness, but don't be intimidated, folks. Please. I need to put a band together here. So maybe I'll even ask tonight's guest, who I'm very excited about. As some of you may or may not know, I did lose several episodes due to some technological difficulties. 6 episodes to be exact that I did lose. And trying to remake up some of them right now, remake some of those right now. And this is one of my guests who's been so cool and so kind enough to do it. So we're going to chop it up with him again. He's here. Let's do this on HUDSON. Let's go. You know, Andrew, you're turned sideways, man. You know, Andrew, I feel like all we need is just that. It's kind of that thing they use on movie sets there, the old clacker for, take two.
Take two, yeah.
But, I'll tell you what, man. First of all, I was just telling my audience, 6 episodes I had recorded, and due to technological fucking difficulties, 6 episodes completely fucking lost because I was having connection problems. And somebody at the Acer Chromebook company told me it would be a great idea to power wash my computer. Not such a great idea, though, in hindsight, because I lost 6 episodes. Yours was one of them. You are the first person to reschedule and redo it, though. So I really appreciate you, taking the time to do it, man. I'll tell you, man, I lost some fucking gems, Andrew. I was gutted, man. Heartbroken.
Yeah, I was upset because I thought we had a really good chat.
Yeah.
I thought it went really well. I thought we captured something special there. So,
yeah. Well, I'm so glad you're willing to do it again. And thankfully, long story short, all the 6 episodes that I've lost so far, the reception's been really good. People are very understanding in terms of saying, yeah, I get it. That fucking sucks really hard, but yeah, sure. Like when I can set some time aside, But so
what do you mean by power wash, by the way?
It's like a thing where so what was happening was, and this is very strange, and I'm 50 years old. I'm not very computer literate. I barely know how to open this goddamn thing and even get this far. And that's through the tutelage of my son. But so I was getting this thing where I was coming up and I was I was trying to open Google Meet and trying to open Facebook Messenger so I could send the links, and it kept telling me that I was offline, despite the fact that I would look down there and it would say that I had a very strong signal. So I called up the people at Acer, and they said it's almost like a factory reset kind of, but I made specific to ask him, am I going to lose the shit that I have on my Google Drive? I said, I do a podcast. I've got some really good episodes on there. And, you know, he backpedaled a little bit at the end after I lost the shit. You know, he said, well, I asked you if you had the stuff backed up with a backup, you know, email account and phone number and all that shit. And he did not. All I asked was, am I going to lose my Google Drive shit? And the answer to that from him was an emphatic no.
That's really odd.
Yeah.
Like, I thought the point of these like online kind of cloud storage things is that you couldn't lose them.
Right, I know, and that's the frustrating part. Yeah, that's the frustrating part. Our last chat is floating somewhere in the fucking ether. It's there. It's somewhere. I just couldn't get into the Google Drive, you know, into my you know, alternate account. So very frustrating though. But you know, there's no crying in podcasting, Andrew. You know, I mean, no crying in podcasting. It is what it is. You know. So for people that don't know, Andrew Hudson, singer, guitarist for HARLOTT, currently, you know, as my audience knows, a band that I am flying the flag for always, man. My favorite band, you, buddy, my favorite band.
No, don't say that.
Yeah, why is that a lot of pressure?
That's a lot of pressure.
So the next album better be good.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the fear. That's every album you release, you go, oh my God, what if people hate it? Like, what if all the people that like the band now go, oh, this was terrible. What are you doing?
But do you really have a fear of that, though? Like, as an artist, though, I mean, because there's such an influx of music, you know, being shoved out into the world. So someone told me in a podcast the other day, you know, on the streaming platform, 60,000 new songs a day coming out. Songs. I mean, so it is really crazy. Do you worry about that, or do you feel like you've got a pretty good plugged-in audience? Or do you worry about your material, like, not going over well?
I mean, you always worry about that. I never write an album and go, oh, this is going to go great. Like, people are going to love this. You always do your best when you're creating music, and then you record it and you mix it and you master it and you listen to it and you go, I guess, like, if it's close to what you envisioned, you're happy. But it's never quite there because you always just hear those little imperfections. But it's always a shock when it comes out and then people go, that was fantastic. Or, you know, some people, it's really weird when people tell you the song that they like the most on the album, and it's always the song that you thought was weakest. Or, I mean, you never really know. You never know how it's going to go down. There's no surefire way of guaranteeing a hit. Otherwise, everyone would just fucking do it and we'd all be millionaires. Yeah. So you just do what my advice is always just write songs that you'd want to listen to yourself, or write things that you think you'd enjoy, and hopefully people also enjoy it. Like, that's the only way I can get away with it.
And you know, obviously, you know, your band HARLOTT, you know, plays thrash music, you know, a very classic, old school sounding thrash. You know, that's why it resonates, I think, so much with me. But when you think of like all the great, like, classic thrash albums, you know, that you and I, you know, grew up with, or that we look at as like the measuring stick, you know, do you ever think like, because I certainly think that Detritus of the Final Age is going to be one of those albums.
Yes, I remember you mentioned this last time, and it was really weird. It was odd to hear it, but it was kind of like, well, I can't make that decision.
Right.
You know, it's up to people to decide whether or not they, and, you know, everyone's got their own opinion. And it was great to hear you say that you feel that might be one of the classic albums. Yeah. Because that means that, you know, that's the impact that it's had on your life. And that's the goal in music, is to, you know, you create a product, and music's it's an expression of joy, it's an expression of love, it's something that everyone resonates with. Now, there's not a person in the world that doesn't enjoy a form of music, one or the other. So when you write music, you go, this is for people to enjoy. And if someone goes, I consider this to be one of the great thrash metal albums of all time, you go, well, I've done my, you know, I've nailed it as far as that person's concerned. That's quite a special thing to hear. Yeah. But I can't consider it to compare to, you know, Pleasure to Kill or Rain and Blood, because those were seminal records. when they did what they were doing, it was the first time people had done it, and that's hugely different to what we do. Like we're not reinventing any wheels. We're just doing the music that we love, composed to these, the pioneers that were trying things differently. They were bending and pushing the rules and stretching the convention of what could and couldn't be considered to be music. They were introducing new ideas, new techniques, new sounds into heavy metal, and they've got a lot to answer for that. They set the world on a very interesting trajectory, but that's all we're doing is trying to replicate those sounds that we love and trying to stay true to the essence of what thrash metal should be.
And now
whilst also applying modern techniques and stuff to try and give it a current sound. But it's good that we can kind of borrow from other assets of metal, like the 90s and 2000s, when several other genres kind of had their heyday. Like we can listen to those and take inspiration for things that they got to try and pioneer, and we can kind of try and introduce that to what we do. So we have that as an advantage, but we're also trying to do stuff that's been around for 30 plus years. So
I think it's funny though, like when you're talking about classic thrash albums though, and I think we touched on this a little bit the first time that we talked, about bands that were
legacy
on you, huh?
Did we talk about Testament for Legacy being the greatest thrash metal record of all time?
But now I'm gonna take umbrage with you though, because I did see in another interview, and I had to go back and listen to it, how much you loved Creator's Cause for Conflict.
Best album.
I had to go back and really see what all the hoopla was about, because it did come out in 1995. But I just recently had Speezy Geisler on here, and that was his first album with the band. And that was his, and he had a nice 25-year run with them though. But that was where it all started with him on that album. So I had to go unearth it on my Apple Music, and because I just was watching you on another podcast the other day, and you mentioned that album, and it's kind of one of those, I don't remember there being a lot of frenzy around that album though. But you're right, it's fucking good.
It's incredible. It's a technical masterpiece. It's cleverly written. It's beautifully it is raw. It's aggressive. It's fast. The drum tone is just unrelenting. It's some of the greatest writing they've ever done. It was hugely experimental for them, because their first couple albums were pretty. I mean, they were always amazing composers. And they were quite, Extreme Aggression and Coma of Souls are quite technical albums, but this one is ridiculous. Like the key changes, the passages, the way that they jump from riff to riff, it's amazing. And it's right in the middle of their weird period. It came after Renewal, and then it was like before Endorama and whatever album Phobia was on. But it's just, it gets lost in the ether. It's from a period of Creator that no one cares about, but it's one of their best albums, and no one knows it. And I've got diehard thrash fans that have got that CD and vinyl, and they don't listen to it because they go, "Oh, that's from that period of Creator that we don't listen to." You go, what are you doing?
They're using it as a coaster.
They're missing out. They're doing themselves a disservice, because it's a fucking amazing album.
Yeah,
it's so good.
I'm glad
you brought it up.
Yeah,
I literally feel very passionately about that.
Yeah, because I literally had to go and listen to it, and I'm familiar with a lot of Creator stuff. I love Creator. I've had debates on here with people, about the all-time greatest thrash metal albums. It's funny you mentioned Extreme Aggression. I always have that album in there. I think I think that's for me, that's like the album to point to and say, wow, like there's one of Creator's finest moments right there. But there's so many you can point to though. I mean, like they just seem to get better and better and better and better as their career went on.
Well, Creators, like Extreme Aggression gets to the point really quickly as an album. Like you put it on, it goes but like it's only like 10-15 seconds in, when it just goes double kick is like really screaming. It's like you go, all right, it's a thrash metal album. When you put Cause for Conflict on, there's like a 30-second intro. There's like a good minute or two of a reasonably mid-paced song before it actually introduces any thrash elements. And I think that's the problem with people's attention spans. Is that album took a couple of minutes before it revealed its true colors, and that was enough for people to go. After Renewal, people were hurt. They were burnt. They were like, "Oh, not again!" And they went, "Don't worry about it then." And they miss out that, you know, there's songs like Bomb Threat and Dogmatic. Dogmatic's one of their fastest, best thrash songs. It goes for like 90 seconds.
Yeah.
All it is riffs and just it's you have to tell people, you have to go. Yeah.
And it's so funny because probably when you bring that album up, though, it's probably not a popular opinion, right? I mean,
and the thing is, and now you understand. You've listened to it recently. I wasn't just saying it to be contrary. I wasn't just being like, "Oh, I like one of their unpopular albums." It's fucking amazing.
It is. It is.
And people like, if there's one thing I want to do in life, it's outside of writing music, it's make sure people realize how good it is.
Yeah.
I bring it up as often as I can in podcasts. People always ask about, you know, albums that inspired us. That's always one of them. It's so good. And I just want people to give that album a chance.
Well, I've maintained a pretty nice friendship since I've had him on with Speezy, so he's going to love hearing that. I'm going to have to tell him, man, that, hey, hey, take some credit here. That was your first album with the band.
And, like, that album starts with drums and bass.
Yeah, yeah.
He goes ding, 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 ding. Like, that's it. His work, Speezy's work was the introduction to one of my favorite Creator albums.
Yeah, And you know, when you do create an album, though, and we may have talked about this the last time, but obviously, in terms of the audience, there is no fucking last time.
Yeah,
it's only this time. So, you know, so when you're going to create an album, you know, do you approach the creative process, you know, as if it's a job? Like, so many artists are like, oh, I go sit in a room and I say, you know, from 1 to 5, I'm going to write music. Or are you just one of these, like, you know, creativity could, you know, you could get a spark at any moment and you're writing shit down or singing something into your phone or however you do it?
Oh yeah, it's. I mean, it's in no way, shape, or form is this something that I would consider a job. Like, if this was a job, I'd have been asking for a pay rise for the last 15 years, emphatically. This is not a good way to make a living. But if I sit down and go, I need to write a song, nothing's going to happen.
Yeah,
you need to wait for ideas to come to you. There's things you can do. You can sit down and go, all right, I want to try this musically. And you can force yourself to kind of go through a process of how would I approach that? How would I put that together? But my phone is full of, like you said, like voice recordings of me going da 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 da, or like a phrase of vocals, and like they're very embarrassing to listen to because it's usually me. It's usually me at my actual job trying to be quiet in a room, being like, and then this riff will go like da 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 da. Like they're a little bit. You know, they're hard to listen to back, but as you know, when you get inspired and something hits you, you need to write it down, because you know you're trying to capture lightning in a bottle. And when you have an idea and something just appears in your head and you go, oh, that's going to be fucking great, you got to make sure you make note of it, because if that goes, you know, it may never come back. So it's very much my writing is very much a response to things that inspire me, or a response to ideas that I have. And funnily enough, it's rarely riffs. It's usually vocals and drums.
That comes first? Yeah.
I usually have an idea of how I want the beat to be going and how I want the vocal phrasing to be. And then I'll try and fit a riff around it, usually.
And you know, with the music business being so, you know, so feast or famine, you know, obviously, you know, years ago there used to be a lot more, formulaic, where there were labels and contracts, and you know, if a label signed you, you know what I mean, they would put a lot of money behind you. It seems like a lot more of an uphill battle now. I mean, you know, for musicians. So do you find it hard? You know, keeping a band lineup and keeping like the morale up, because it's, you know, every time I research a band, they always have that on their Wikipedia page, that laundry list of fucking ex-members that's like a mile long. You know, but you know, is it hard in this day and age? You know, do you feel like this lineup of Harlott is a lot of guys rowing in the same direction and it's a good stable lineup?
Well, I mean, it is difficult to keep people interested in a job that doesn't pay. Like, It's you can't keep a member in your bands. Like, you might have a phenomenal guitarist and things get a bit rocky. You always start out getting along friendly, but you know, you're not designed to get along with everyone in the world, and sometimes the person who's the right fit for the band isn't a right fit for you socially. So, but we're not in a position where a person go, look, I'll put up with it because the pay's good. Like, that doesn't exist at our level at all. So, basically, if you're like, if you're not 100% interested in spending time with the other people in your band and putting in the work and like investing your own capital, obviously you're just going to be like, all right, fucking, I'm out. Yeah. And like you can't begrudge people for that, particularly, you know, since we started doing things. You know, we were in our early 20s. You know, I was a teenager when I started the band, and we've been, you know, on the road since I was in my early 20s. I've had members get married. I've had members start families. You know, it happens. Our first guitarist now flies airliners for like Cathay Pacific. Like that's he hit a point where he went, I'm going to go pursue a career, and it's not conducive to me also being a musician. I was like, fair enough. You know, some people go on a tour and then they come back and go, that's not actually for me. You know, touring's not the life that I wanted. So yeah, it is hard to keep people interested. You can't offer them too many sweet perks. So you need to find people that just are doing it because they love it, are doing it because they believe in the products, which is, you know, the music that you're writing. People that want to express themselves in the same vein as you, and you know, obviously you want people that you can stand being around. That's
always a good thing. Yeah, that's always a good thing. And in 2020, when you dropped Detritus, how did, you know, shortly, I don't know what point of the year you dropped it, but obviously the wheels fell off. Everything went crazy with COVID. Oh, yeah. How did that directly affect you guys as a band?
Well, we were supposed to release that album in early 2020. It ended up coming out in November, I think, maybe November 11th or November 9th. I can't remember, but we were supposed to be in Europe in 2020, so it was supposed to be out in time for us to go and play, you know, Pitfest in the Netherlands, Rock Hard in Germany. We had a couple of other gigs lined up, but you know, obviously 2020 had other plans. 2020 was much the same. 2021 was much the same. 2022, the world was a bit of a fucking state. It's not till 3 years later that we're actually managing to get back over to Europe, but you know, we were supposed to have the album out early 2020. Things started getting a bit weird. The record label were like, maybe let's sit and wait until this is over before we drop it. We don't want to, you know, release it into the world and then have it just kind of spunk its load before it can actually do anything with it. Right. And after, I think, 3 or 4 months of, I think when it became obvious that this wasn't, because, you know, like, you remember like Ebola scares and like swine flu scares and bird flu scares, and they're always like, oh my God, this is going to be world changing and world ending.
This is it.
Never amounted to fuck all. It was always like, and that was it. Yeah. When it became obvious that this one wasn't that, and it was actually going to affect things as much as they'd feared it would. I remember when it started and they go, this could be a problem for 18 months. And it was like, yeah. Good ones. Like, yeah.
Right.
I've heard it before. And, you know, now 3 years later, and we're still like, we're only just removing some restrictions. It was after we realized that it was going to be a while that the label said, oh, I mean, this might be the new normal. Let's just put it out. So I've released it. You know, we couldn't tour it. We couldn't back it up with anything. We couldn't do a launch show pretty much. I think we did a launch show for the album ages later. Like the album had been out for a while, and then we did a gig.
That's funny.
It was, you know, less of an album launch and more of a kind of like an album wake. It was like it was good though, because it meant that everything had to be relied on, you know, digitally. It gave us a chance to kind of sit back and focus on the other things, other side of the band, which is, you know, I don't like marketing, but you know, that's about all you could do for 2 years.
Well, I'm glad you brought up marketing, you know, because I ask a lot of young bands this on here, but, you know, and as I just mentioned, with the music business having changed so much, you know, being a musician here in 2023, you know, when you've got this piece of music done, you know, how do you kind of catapult or keep propelling your band forward nowadays? I know a lot of bands are making, you know, still making videos, you know, even though the MTV that I remember is long gone, but people are still making videos, putting them up on YouTube, you know, is it putting stock in the social media and getting yourself out there? Is it staying relevant on the platforms? Is it getting onto a great tour bill? Is it all that shit? I mean,
it is 100% staying relevant with social media trends, which I suck at. I remember when we joined Metal Blade and they said you're going to have to make a Twitter, and I was like, Like, why? Like, what? What has Twitter got to do with my heavy metal band? Like, isn't that just people saying things that they think?
Right.
And rather than fucking keeping it to themselves, like any sane person would do, they go, I think the world might want to hear this.
Yeah, no, I gotta sit home and know what Andrew Hudson's having for breakfast.
I don't get it. I don't understand the narcissism that it breeds. That everyone thinks that whatever it is they're doing at any point in the day,
right,
the world wants to know.
Yeah,
tell them that your bus was late. You know?
You got to know when Kim Kardashian's taking a shit. That's important.
Yeah.
That's important stuff.
I mean that I do want to know. But
so social media, you're admittedly not good at, but
I suck at it. I loathe and detest it. I think it's a blight on humanity. No good has come from it. I mean, there's huge benefits to keeping the world connected. Everything's more accessible than it ever is. That's the joy of the internet. But it's such a huge part of being in a band now, and it flies in the face of everything creative. I do this because I like music. I like writing music. I like performing music. Making little snippets of dumb shit. I hate content creation. It's not what I'm here for.
Right.
I'm not in the band because that's what I want to do. But it's such an important part of it, and I'm lucky that we don't need to rely on that too much. We've got major label backing, and they do a lot of the marketing for us.
Yeah.
They know what they're doing, so I rely on them to kind of take care of that for me, because I couldn't do it. I'm very bad at it. I'm kind of forcing. I have to do heaps of posts at the moment because we're going to Europe in like a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And we're announcing shows still, like we're filling up dates, and then like, all right, this one's ready to go. Here's a flyer. Announce it. And you got to make sure people know that you're coming.
Right.
I hate doing it. Like I have to force myself to.
Now, when will I see? Now, when will I see Harlott here in the United States? I've got the guest bedroom already. I mean,
right.
You'll probably be sleeping on some strawberry shortcake sheets and blankets. So that's very non-metal. But I mean, still,
When you say that, is it just sheets with strawberry shortcake pictures on it?
Yeah, my wife's very big into the strawberry shortcake. From the 1980s. The girl with the bonnet and the red hair and the character. I don't know. Maybe it didn't catch on really big over in Australia, but she's like a little girl with a bonnet, and she had
that might be a cultural thing that Australia kind of jumped over.
It might be. It might be.
As a country that relies heavily on its British heritage, I thought you were just referring to a dish. No. And when you were like, you might be sleeping on strawberry shortcake. I was like, what the fuck are you offering me here?
No, nothing kinky here. Nothing.
Yeah, what more's the pity? I would have come to America just for that.
but in all seriousness, no. Is it important? For a band that's geographically where you're from, is it important to quote unquote, for lack of a better word, kind of make it or get some recognition here in the States?
It's important for us to expand into the overseas markets, just because Australia as a market is untenable. You can't, particularly with the music that we do, you can't make a successful living from, touring and playing to Australian audiences. We've got 25 million people in a country that's just slightly smaller than the United States. So, we're like maybe 20% by landmass smaller than your country, but we've got less than 10% of your population.
Right.
It is like, we're in Melbourne, and we want to play our next closest capital city, and that's Adelaide, 1.5 million people. Not even that large as far as cities go. And by Australian standards, at least, that's an 8-hour drive.
Yeah. So things are very spread out.
8-hour drive, no breaks. That is 110 kilometers, probably 60 miles per hour.
Yeah.
Non-stop. Boom. You'll get there in 8 hours.
Yeah.
It's, if you want to do an Eastern Coast tour, if you want to go, Brisbane to Sydney to Melbourne, it's 10 hours between each city by car.
Yeah.
Your other option is to fly, and that means you've got, 4 tickets each time.
Yeah.
It's, you're out of pocket thousands of dollars. Australia is a really hard country to tour, and it's very economically unviable. So we rely on, touring Europe, where it's, hour-and-a-half, 2-hour drive between like major cities.
Yeah.
And you can do a run through Germany and do 15 shows. You can't play 15 gigs in Australia. We don't have 15 places you can play. And North America is the fact you've got 50 states and you've got multiple cities in each state. Like that's a hugely enticing thing for us. I understand it's long drives and long hauls, but as Australians, we're used to that. And it's on my list of things to do. I absolutely have to play America at some point in my life. It's a large portion of our Spotify audience because it tells you where your fans are from. I know that North America is a big part of our audience, and I've done a lot of these interviews with American people. There's obviously a thirst for it, and on both America's end and on my end to come to North America. So I absolutely want to get over there. I just got to wait for the right offer.
Well, are any of these interviews telling you that Detritus of the Final Age will soon be pushing Master of Puppets out of the pantheon of the greatest thrash albums of all time and inserting itself into that spot?
Well, I mean, I haven't done many interviews with crackheads, but
that's the nicest thing anyone said to me all day.
It's like, look, a lot of people, and it was really good when Detritus came out, and there was the record label organized a bunch of interviews. So you got a fairly full schedule for a couple of weeks. But a lot of the American audience were saying similar things to you. They were just like, if this is where the band is going, keep it up. Because I've been following your band from the start. This is your strongest release. A lot of people were really excited about it. And that's, there was no better, litmus test than people telling you, going, this is the correct direction to take the band. This is your greatest work yet. Now it'd be weird if you, and the thing, like you do interviews with German people and they go, your latest album's not as good as your other ones. And you go, thank you. That's the kind of German honesty that they love. But you feel genuinity when people go, this is the best thing you've ever done. So it's I can't remember what the original question was, but no, I don't think anyone else other than you, no one else has suggested that this might be one of the great thrash metal albums of all time. Well,
that German press is probably giving you a lot of shit because they're probably saying, hey, this is no cause for conflict.
Yes, I try and take everything Germans say with a grain of salt because a lot of things that they have, industriousness and genuinity, a sense of humor is not on that list.
No.
There are hard people to interview.
Yeah.
They're just so straight up and down.
And I probably asked this the last time, but again, as far as my audience goes, there was no last time. So here goes. Your own upbringing, though, how early on did you know that music was something you were going to pursue? Like, how early on did you get a guitar in your hands, or did music really start to resonate with you?
According to my parents, it was like very, very early on because apparently I was always singing along in the car with the songs they were playing. My parents were big Jethro Tull fans. As a result, I'm a huge JT fanboy. I think I've got every record they've done since like they started till about the mid-90s on vinyl. I'll sing along with that, sing along with Meatloaf, John Farnham. I'm not sure if Americans get into John Farnham as much as Australians do, but according to my parents, from very young, I was singing along in the car. One Christmas, they got me one of those like plastic guitars with buttons and it just makes noise. I put it on, I didn't take it off for the rest of the day. Like, I think it was, I recall like my earliest memories, I always wanted to do something musically. I was always really into the rock star thing. So it's definitely, I think it was always in my blood a little bit. I don't think anyone was surprised when I started the band. Like, I don't think any of my relatives were like, "Oh, shock horror, he's in a band." I think they were disappointed that I chose heavy metal. But my dad famously said, "This is what I had to deal with." Like, my dad said, "Why don't you play music people like?" My dad was always a financial guy. Yeah. He was always very much a, why would you do something unless you can make money from it? And I think, like most people, he went, I think you missed the window on heavy metal, young man. But, I couldn't write anything unless I loved it. So I think anything else I did would come across as disingenuous. So,
but it's very funny. It's very funny that you bring up Jethro Tull, though, because, and of course, there is obviously an age difference between the, between the two of us. But I remember, sitting and watching with bated breath, the now legendary Grammy Awards when Metallica finally made the one video and they were beat out in the heavy metal category by Jethro Tull.
Yeah. What was this?
And people were outraged.
Yeah, as rightly they should have been. That was. I mean, that was, I guess that was kind of the sign of the times, is people were really, really refusing to kind of acknowledge the fact that heavy metal were becoming a big deal. Like Metallica absolutely should have won that. Jethro Tull didn't go. Right. They were nominated, and I think someone was like, "You're nominated for a heavy metal award, and you're up against Metallica, so don't even bother going." Yeah. They were like, they didn't think they were going to win that. When they won it, it was it was ridiculous. They knew it was ridiculous. Everyone knew it was ridiculous. But in the 60s and 70s, Jethro Tull were about as heavy as things would get. There was Sabbath were doing their thing. There was bands that were doing heavy riffs, but Jethro Tull were using double kickers. They were running like ferociously, bottom end heavy stuff. Obviously, they had flute things as well, but there's some pretty heavy moments in a lot of their
even you couldn't say flute with a straight face.
I mean, I acknowledge that he's phenomenal at it, but it's not my favorite part of the band, that's for sure.
Not very metal, that's for sure.
I like Martin Barr and Barrymore Barlow.
Let me ask you this: do you guys sit around as a band and give a lot of thought to the release format? Like, obviously, me being an old school guy, I love a full length album. But, the market seems to be very polarizing right now. A lot of people are so worried about keeping their name relevant, and they're releasing singles, or they're releasing, EPs, but they're releasing them quickly. Do you have a feeling on that? Like what the right or wrong answer is, specifically for your band?
Well, I've got two answers for that. Okay. First of all, absolutely, the way the future is, that the album as a format's dead. Like it's no longer commercially viable. Yeah. If everything is available online in as much or as little as you want, why would you put together an amount of music that was specifically enough to fill two sides of a vinyl? Like, that makes no sense.
Right.
But it's what I grew up on. It's what I grew up on. It's what I understand. It's what I know. I put a lot of thought into making a cohesive, hour-long piece of product. It's what I'm always going to want to do, just because, like my, sorry, my kids my dog and my cat are wrestling because it's early morning and they've got a lot of it. So it's what I grew up on, and it's what I like listening to. And similar to me, like I'm 33 this year. Now my fan base, as a rule, are generally quite a bit older than myself. It was people that grew up with people that were like alive during the 80s. It's mainly where my fan base is. Yeah. And they like that old school format. They like having the vinyl. They like having the CD. They like having something physical that they can bring to shows and get you to sign. A lot of them are collectors. A lot of them are, like our vinyl sales are a large part of our revenue, just because, people like having that physical object. And it's always something that I'm going to lean towards. I like it too. I like putting together that artwork. It's something cool to have. When you write all those songs and spend all that time in the studio, and at the end of it, you get handed this, piece of wax. Yeah. In a beautiful full color printed sleeve with the plastic thing and the piece of paper inside, photo of the band, all the lyrics. Yeah. That's it. That's the final moment. You go, here it is. Here's the culmination of everything we've done. I'm always going to want to do that. And a large part of our audience are always going to want us to do that. So it's not something it's not something I'm going to be able to walk away from, and it's not something I would want to walk away from. But the way the world is now, full-length albums aren't really not how the market is heading. It's not what people need to do anymore. You could just release single after single after single after single and keep constant buzz about your band. But
that seems to be the trend. Yeah, it does. Yeah. And when you guys go out and play, now you mentioned obviously the difficulty with touring Australia, you know, just because of the geographically the way it's laid out. But typically, when you guys do go on a tour, though, what is everybody's situation in the band as far as like you know, obviously when you get older, the narrative in your life changes. You may have a significant other or children or a job that keeps you tethered. You know what I mean? Like you know, and you can't leave for long periods of time. You know, what kind of freedom do you guys have to go out and tour? I know. I think we talked last time where like you've got quite a bit of freedom at your own job.
Yes, I've got a very flexible work position, which is good. I've always kind of had an amount of flexibility. But, you know, 10 years ago, I was working in a lab. It wasn't great work. It wasn't great pay. If I needed to quit that job so I could go on tour, I would have. Fuck it, like, see you later. I'm definitely less willing to do that now, but I have a very travel-heavy job. I'm on the road a lot for work, and then I, you know, take 2 weeks off to be on the road for music, and then I go back, and then I'm back on the road. That gets pretty old, but I've also got a very understanding, you know, the management structure of my work. You know, when I only started this job this year, and they were like, "Do you have any time off planned?" And you go, "Yeah, I've got a couple of weeks off in July to go to Europe and play some festivals." They normally go, "Well, that's fucking awesome." Like, obviously, you know, knock yourself out. We're not going to try and stop you from doing that. If, you know, I need to take a couple of days off to go and play some shows, they're always like, "Yep, no worries." They're very understanding because they know that when I am working, they put me through absolute fucking hell, making me drive to country towns and go to cheese factories. So I've got a lot of flexibility in that, but also, you know, within the band, I've got 2 guys. Actually, no, fuck. Everyone in the band is married. So everyone's got wives, and some of them have got children. My guitarist has 2 very little children at home, and I wouldn't want to take him away from his wife and kids for extended periods of time. So we're going to Europe this year, and I've kept it as short as possible while still being hopefully viable. And that's the problem. The easiest way to make money is by playing as many shows as you can. Yeah. Because 4 people returned to Europe. I think it was about $11,000 to $12,000. That was our flight costs. So, like, we need to try and make $11,000 plus all the other touring expenses in 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's a lot of t-shirts.
We need to make €1,000 per night.
Yeah.
And that is, you know, at our level, very difficult.
Yeah.
So, there's no way we're going to make money on this run, but fuck it.
Yeah, fuck it.
It'll be fun.
Yeah, it'll be fun. That's right. And I've also got down here in my notes Desecrator. Are you still involved with that band?
I was involved with them right up until their last show late last year. They've gone. So I'm not sure if I should discuss this openly, but as far as Australia was concerned, and the world was concerned, Desecrator announced that they were calling it a day. I knew in my heart that it was likely to be more of a hiatus. The front man, the brain, like the man who runs that band, that was his baby. He'd been doing it for like 10 plus years.
Right.
I knew that it was likely just a little bit of time off before he got it back going again, like maybe 1 or 2 year hiatus. If they do get back together, I don't think I'll be involved. But I suspect they'll be back.
Is it hard when you say you don't want to be involved in another project, though? You know, are you open to being involved in any other projects, or do you feel like in order in this day and age, you know, to make a band work, does HARLOTT have to be, you know, your only focus? So, what I've found in the last couple of years, and you know, there's a couple of ways that you can think about it. I love being on stage. I love performing. I love playing in Desecrator. It wasn't my baby. It wasn't, you know, I was involved in the writing of some of the songs, but a lot of the time it was just me getting to get up on stage and play guitar and have a good time. Yeah. And it feels different when it's not your like
when it's not 100% your product and it's not something you've been working your whole life towards, you're going, I'm actually just contributing to this. I'm a performer. I'm adding to the show, and I'm adding to the sound. That was a really enjoyable thing to chase. But there was also the demands of it being an original band, which meant you needed to, there was artwork design, there was all the other aspects of it. But what I've started doing in the last couple of years is just playing in some like local kind of tribute shows. Like I get up on stage and effectively do Tom Araya for an hour. I play bass and I sing Slayer songs, and it fills me with joy getting to play all these songs that I love. And it scratches that itch of getting on stage and having a reasonably low stakes kind of live performance. Yeah. So like, outside of HARLOTT, there's going to be other things that I do musically, but I'm going to avoid investing myself in like heavily in original projects, just because when it comes to creating music and it comes to writing and it comes to, formulating material, I would rather focus solely on HARLOTT as something that I've, worked on my whole life. And when it comes to scratching my itch of performance, I can do that with, just little cover shows. Recently Tim Ripper Owens came to Australia and I got to play bass for him for a couple of gigs. Yeah. So like, and that was as much fun as a man can have on stage. Yeah. I was playing classic Judas Priest songs, Dio songs, some Juggulator and Demolition Era. It was cool. It was awesome.
Yeah, and the name of the band, HARLOTT. I've had guys on here who have had to go through all kinds of litigation and problems. Have you had to ever have any kind of a tussle over that band name? Forgive me for not knowing, but I don't know. Are there other HARLOTTs out there?
I think there was a Canadian speed metal band in the 80s called HARLOTT with 2 T's.
Okay.
I don't think they exist anymore. I believe there was a Nashville hard rock band called HARLOTT with 2 T's when we started, and they when we started up and then they started up, they were sending us messages being like, please stop using that name. They would comment on our post, stop calling yourselves HARLOTT. I'm pretty sure they broke up, so we won as far as I'm concerned.
So what do you do in a situation like that when you get a message like that? It's not like a cease and desist. It's not like it's something legal. Are they just just trying to strong arm you? Like they just expect you to say, okay, we'll stop. I mean,
I think it was, I guess it was just them being like, don't do that because if we get famous, you're going to have to change it later. But, they didn't really do anything. Like I said, we won. We ended up, we got to a level where, as far as I'm concerned, now we're the HARLOTT with 2 T's. Anyone else who's doing it, they would be the imitators.
Right. So now you have to go on strong arm them now.
Yeah. So I don't have time to Google other bands with my name.
And when you sit down and write these songs, obviously extreme metal, thrash metal, whatever you want to call it. Certainly the lyrical content, certainly lends itself to, aggression. A lot of the stuff is very topical as to what's going on in the world right now, or, whatever particular lane you choose to be in when you're writing. Where do you draw inspiration from? Are you like a big news watcher, or do you pull shit from from like movies, or, what's the impetus for your ideas?
I usually quip that world news is a really good source of inspiration, just because the things that are happening in the world currently are pretty dire. But I mean, historically speaking, sorry, this is my little pooch is coming to say hi.
All right, that's all right. I'm always down for cameo. Always good with cameo appearances. That's fine.
The cat stopped playing, so now if you need someone else to give her a stick. So. World news is a great source if you want, things to get upset about. But I mean, it's the same old story. It's less about what's happening right now and more of the fact that it's always been happening. And it's always been happening for the same reasons. It's right. It's more of an observation of the human condition than it is anything. It's something that I've always noted is that if someone can make profit from doing the wrong thing, they generally will. And there's a lot of bad things that happen in the world because it's, there's a lot of money to be made in evil. So, it's easy to kind of get inspired by things like that. you know, historically there's heaps of material that you can look at, but it all boils down to the wicked things that men do at the end of the day. And I think the human conditions are great. There you go.
And go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a great thing to draw from, just because, you know, people's political beliefs and their religious beliefs, and the fact that like war as a concept exists. It's easy to kind of get concepts from that.
And as a guitar player, I always hate the word, I hate to word it with the dreaded influence question, but coming from a different angle, who are some guys whose guitar playing you really love? Like, just as a fan.
I think I remember this question last time, because I'm pretty sure I brought up Bobby Gustafson.
Oh yes, you did. That's right.
Because like as a, I'm not much of a lead guitar player. I'm not very good at solos. I used to try back in the day, but I kind of gave it up, realizing that if I had a guy, there's two guitarists in the band. Lee is much better than me, so why would I do solos when I got someone else who's much better?
Right.
So inspiration for me comes from like how someone puts a song together, and some, like how they crafted ideas of how they use the guitar. And Bobby's work on The Years of Decay and Under the Influence is just phenomenal. Particularly Years of Decay. There's some really interesting passages and phrases, and like the amount of like character he gets in his actual riffing. Like the guy did a phenomenal job on those albums, and I'm a huge fan of like his sound and how those songs work. Years of Decay is a hugely influential record for me, as well.
And it's such a bummer too, because I had him on here as a guest, and we talked all about the resurgence of Violence. And then I was going to put the episode up, and then he left Violence. So all the stuff was kind of like, not so pertinent anymore.
Yeah. I think Violence played in Melbourne recently. I went to the show. I went because Sacred Reich were playing, and I was like, I'm going to go watch Sacred Reich.
Yeah.
But like Violence were down to like one original member playing, and he was sick that night as well. Yeah. So like Violence played on stage, and it was no members of like of Violence. It was weird.
Yeah, the wheels kind of. Yeah, I feel like the wheels kind of came off. I mean, like and Perry, the original drummer, from what I understand, he's out, and I do think Phil Demmel is still there, and Sean, the lead singer, and I think that's it.
So yeah, Phil Demmel wasn't there, and Sean was sick that night.
Yeah.
So it was a Violence. I think people are referring to it as a Violence cover band.
Yeah. and
but
you're talking about
kicked ass.
They're awesome.
He's still amazing. His vocals were just on point. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're talking about going out to seeing like these bands. Are you somebody that loves to go out and see live music? Do you try to get out and do it as much as you can, or is it hard with your particular schedule?
It's difficult. There's certain shows that I will go to. There isn't, like, it's hard to find time. But the other problem is it feels a lot like work. When it hits a point where you've been to so many shows, because you've played so many shows, that every time you're in a gig environment, it just feels like you're at work. And so sometimes you just want to be at home somewhere quiet. It's hard to be at a gig and kind of enjoy the crowd and enjoy the volume. The easiest way to enjoy it is to drink, because drinking makes everything easier. But if you're there and you're just a punter and you drove to the show, so you're sober, you're kind of standing in the crowd being like, I mostly wish I was on stage right now.
Right.
That's another problem. They're like, I wish I was up there.
And like, what are we drinking on these nights out? Because obviously there's a big reputation over in Australia for the big, huge, monstrous cans of Foster's. Is that very popular still in Australia?
We don't drink Foster's.
No,
we don't. You can't find it. It's
not a beer. Why was the commercial always Foster's, Australian for beer?
Yes, because we wanted to sell you our terrible beer. Like, it was an export beer. We made it. We made a terrible lager, and we went send it overseas. Like, it's every pub in the UK has got Foster's on tap. Not a single pub in Australia has got Foster's on tap.
Interesting.
You can't drink it here.
Wow.
And you wouldn't. It's not a good beer.
It's not. No.
Also, those like giant cans. I don't. What's a standard size of, like, if you go to a beer and you, like, someone pours a beer, I think you call it draft.
Yeah.
When you like, yeah. So we call it tap beer. It's on tap.
It's a good size. It's a good size mug, I guess.
Yeah.
Here in the States.
Is it like a half liter? Is it a pint? Is it a?
Yeah, I would say it's probably. I would say it's a pint. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's. I mean, that's. It's like that's a universal. You know, like, I know Europeans love their half liters, but you know, in the UK it's a pint. In Australia it's a pint. It's probably similar to you guys. I mean, that's as big a beer as we drink. And you guys have pitchers as well, don't you?
You can buy a pitcher. Yeah.
We call them jugs.
Yeah. You can tell the real alcoholics in the bar because they're just drinking it right out of the pitcher.
Yeah. I think you get in trouble for doing that in Australia.
Yeah,
they will kick you out. Yeah, if you
really
drink straight from the jug. Yeah.
And you know, over there in Australia, how lenient are the laws over there? You know, because obviously things have changed quite a bit over here with our marijuana laws. How is it over there?
That's still no good, mate.
Still no good. Like still no good. It's still no good in terms of it's considered a serious crime.
It is still considered a crime. It's not decriminalized yet. You're not allowed to have it on you. You're not allowed to grow it. You're not allowed to sell it, etc. You know, we've got those e-cigarettes. Yeah.
The vape.
We've got horrendous laws on those. Like, those are impossible to come by in Australia.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah, those are very hard to buy. You need to, like, find dodgy corner stores and buy them.
Oh, we have dodgy corner stores here. We definitely have dodgy corner stores. I mean, but, you know, even despite the fact, you know, how much it's been decriminalized, we still have dodgy corner stores, though. I mean,
yeah. Well, that's just where you get it the cheapest, right?
The cheapest. Yeah. But now it's crazy. Now it's crazy over here because you can go into like a convenience store, you know, like where you would pump your gas, and you could walk up to the counter and there's THC and CBD products right at the counter, oils and tinctures and things of that nature with that, you know, that you could buy. You know, it might not be the most potent stuff, might not be as good as like going to your weed dealer and getting a bag of weed. I mean, but it's still, you can find stuff in your normal convenience store that you could get high on.
Can you buy beers at those convenience stores?
Sure.
Yeah. See, we don't have that either.
Like, can't buy beer at a convenience store. No.
Yeah. No, alcohol you need to buy at an alcohol retailer. What we call a bottle shop or a bottle-o.
Okay.
That's like the only place you can buy booze from, because, you know, like I know in service stations, or we would call them servos in Australia.
Yeah.
When you go to a gas station in Europe, they've got beers. They've got a fridge full of beers, and like we were always like, oh, that's crazy. You can just buy beer fucking anywhere here. Like, also, it's so expensive in Australia.
What, the beer is expensive?
Yeah, it's fucking wild.
Really?
Yeah. What's it like? A 6-pack of beer? What would you buy? How much would that cost in America?
Well, you know, a lot of it is depending on like the brand and how expensive your taste is. I mean, you can go out and get some crappy like Old Milwaukee or something. You know what I mean? Like probably for like you know, maybe $5-6 for a 6-pack.
So what's that, like 8-9 Australian dollars?
Yeah, I mean, but you know, it wouldn't necessarily be the good shit. Like if you wanted to get a 6-pack of something better, like a Michelob or a Heineken or something that's a little more like top, you know, considered top shelf, it might be a little bit more money. But still, you wouldn't be breaking the bank for a 6-pack. You wouldn't even be breaking the bank probably for a 12-pack. And over here, you know, some of the beer companies even have like what they call a 30 rack. You know what I mean? Like where you can get like 30 beers. You know what I mean? Like that's their case. Yeah.
A block.
Yeah, a large amount.
Yes. Do you buy the beers in set to 24?
24 is a case.
Yeah, the slab of beers.
Yeah.
So a 6-pack of Heineken in Australia, if you go to a bottle shop, like that bottle shop being the cheapest way you can get it, it's going to be $20+.
Oh, goodness gracious. Yeah. Jeez.
Now, if
no wonder you guys got to live off fucking Vegemite over there. Jesus.
If you go to a bar and buy a single bottle of Heineken, that's going to be $12.
Oh my God! Cheaper to stay at home. So in the long run, it does wind up being cheaper to stay at home, though. And Yeah, and I think the last time you did give us quite a good tutelage on the proper way, because I'm always fascinated by the whole Vegemite thing. And you said the key was a lot of butter and spreading it thin. You stand by that?
Yep. Vegemite is a sparing spread, like a skerrick of it on top of your toast, like barely line it, and you just want a taste of it. Yeah, because it's not like Nutella or peanut butter. You don't want a full fucking mouthful of it.
That's no good.
You want just a hint of it. You want nicely toasted bread, a bit of butter, and then a tiny bit of Vegemite.
Yeah,
and we grew up on that, so we're really used to it.
And that's consistent with what other people told me. I just spoke to David Haley from the great Psychroptic, and he told me the same thing. Lots of butter and spreading it thin.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just had him on the other night. And again, I couldn't resist. I'm like, I got a live one here. I got an Australian on here. I gotta go. I gotta go into Vegemite territory.
He's a lovely guy, that guy.
Yeah, he is. Oh, and just him and his brother are just so talented.
Him and Joe. They're ridiculous, isn't it?
Amazing.
They write the heaviest fucking music, and it's drop D.
Yeah,
like, that's all they did.
Yeah,
they went a full step down on one string and went, that's it. Now we're going to be the heaviest fucking band of all time. I've been watching those guys since I was like 16. I remember Cats. I was 16 years old, going to like a local pub at an underage show that they played, and just like it was around like when Symbols of Failure came out, and they're just incredible, lovely dudes. I managed to play with them a couple of times.
And what is the music scene? What is the general music scene like for extreme music specifically, in Australia in general?
The easiest way to kind of consider the Australian scene is to consider whatever America and Europe are doing 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So like when there was the thrash resurgence that happened like in the mid 2000s.
Yeah.
We got that 10 years later in Australia.
So you're 10 years behind everything.
Yeah, we were 10 years behind in that because we released, thrash was really big in Australia. We released our like second album, and we were getting interviewed by people saying like, how come you're playing thrash when it's dead again? And it was like, what?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Hasn't it been dead since like 1989? What are you talking about? So we're always a little bit behind the curve because in the mid 2000s, when the world was going crazy about thrash again, we were in a huge gore grind kind of phase.
Yeah,
the Australian grindcore scene was a really big deal in the mid 2000s, and then there was a bit of a thrash thing. I'm not sure what's happening at the moment. What was popular in America and Europe in like the mid 2010s?
Mid 2010s, yeah, I do kind of remember it being like a lot of those bands. I guess of course the metal world just has so many genres, and then those genres have fucking subgenres. So I guess you'd call it metalcore. I'm thinking a lot of those bands like Whitechapel and like that kind of stuff. Oceano. I'm thinking of bands like that really seem to be really popular like around that time.
Well, we had our own, we had quite a big scene of that, of course, because we're the home of Parkway Drive, so we always had like a big flag in the kind of hardcore metalcore.
Short-haired guys playing very loud and scary music, but they look like but they look like suburban kids. They look like
detuned Schecter guitars. And
right. Look like the kid that like lives next door and mows your lawn, but then he's going out and starting a band, and he's ball caps and short hair, and a lot of bands like that. But that's not to impugn what they do, of course. I mean.
My mate said that he goes, all their songs, he goes, half of their songs are about how they would do anything for their friends, and the other half of the songs about how their friends betrayed them.
Yeah, it is a lot of songs like that. Yeah, and in your travels across Australia and doing your touring, do you ever meet up with these guys? I'm very intrigued by this band Portal. I think we might have talked about them the last time.
Yeah.
They're always in costume, and you can't seem to find a goddamn thing on the internet about who these fucking guys really are. I first heard about them through Phil Anselmo, who's always rocking a lot of their merch. But and when I first started the podcast, I was like, wow, a band that could be that heavy. And, it really brings back the fear of how scared you used to be before social media came around, of how scared I remember being as a teenager exposure of these death metal bands because you didn't know a lot about them. And every album cover and picture, it was just like them out in the fucking woods somewhere with just hair in front of their face. And you were like, who are these guys? You know? And then you see like Glenn Benton with an upside down cross burned into his fucking forehead. And you're like, holy shit, man, these guys are really fucking scary. But I can't seem to find anything out about Portal.
Yeah, I think it's quite deliberate. They keep
they do.
They keep kind of that anonymity, and you know, it's not something I feel like I should share, if that's the point.
No, don't share it. No, don't share it for sure. No, don't share it.
But it's something, you know. It's like it kind of happens a bit in Australia when people that are renowned for like you know, a certain band, you know, Dave Haley throws himself around a bit because he does a bunch of other bands. You know, him and his brother do is it Ruins?
Yeah. And he talked a little about, and he talked a little in the interview, like about like doing like you know, management and like tour planning for other acts and stuff like that.
He does some. I can't remember the name of his band, but he does like a merch website and stuff, and like a huge amount of his, like that's a huge amount of his like what he does now is just, you know, running these merch websites. But you know, there's people in bands of that level, like, you know, people in Australia that they're known for Psychroptic, but they want to do something else, but they don't want to detract from what they're doing. They don't want to be considered the guy from this band, the guy from that band. So they kind of obscure themselves. They become like, it's like the members of Ghost. They go, you know, they're just performers in this band. And you know, there's a couple of bands that do that. They get up on stage, you know, obscure things, masks and things. It's quite a cool, I don't know if you call it a gimmick or if you call it you know, part of the imagery, but I think it's kind of the way we're leaning. It's particularly in Australia when you were talking about how you've just got that like laundry list of people leaving bands, like ex-members, you know, 30 ex-members in a band. It's like, you know, why make a big song and dance about who is in the band if they're only going to be around for a year or two?
Right.
Why not just have, you know, drummer, bass player, guitarist, and a vocalist? Why not? It's irrelevant who physically is behind that hood or behind that mask.
Right.
Performer in the band. It's about the music. It's about the actual band itself rather than the individuals. So you know, bands like Portal that
anybody could be Anybody could be under those masks. I remember reading an article several months back, like where Kiss is on their farewell tour, but Gene Simmons said, you know what, there could always be a Kiss because, you know, anybody could paint their faces up. Maybe we pass the torch to 4 other guys and Kiss just goes on fucking forever. I don't know if that's such a great idea or not, but you see where it could though, you know?
Yeah, the problem, like, I mean, Gene Simmons will say anything to continue to make revenue. So the point, I thought the point behind the Kiss masks were that they were, you know, the original lineup, they were putting something of like their personality into it.
Yeah.
Like the Night Cat and the Starman and the
right.
Spaceman and shit. So it doesn't quite work in that way, but of course Gene would be like, well, you know, if he can license a fucking band to go and continue to do what he should have stopped doing a long time ago.
Well, and at this point, too, I also don't think they ever have to worry about 4 new guys because I don't think this farewell tour is ever going to fucking end anyway. So,
how many times have they done farewell shows?
Several, and I think even the one that they're on right now is already going into its 3rd or 4th year.
So they've just announced like a bunch more shows in Australia, and it's like the final ever show in Sydney, or like the final ever, you know, Melbourne show. And my thought was, like a year or two ago, people spent a fortune on tickets. To see the final ever Melbourne show. Wouldn't they be entitled to a refund?
I would think they should be. Yeah, Gene Simmons should be personally showing up at all their doorsteps with a check.
I mean, how is this not like a large class action? Like all these people that were like, I bought a $1,400 ticket because I thought it was the last chance to see you. Now that it isn't the last chance to see you, the value of that ticket is significantly diminished. I would like a refund.
No, right. All kidding aside, you make a good point, though. Yeah, that's true. I know. I don't understand. I'm not even how they get around that either.
I would be very happy if you know, everyone sued Gene Simmons. That would make me fucking very pleased. But the problem with Kiss fans is they're Kiss fans. So they're not going to do that. And
now, where is your disdain?
I shouldn't shit on Kiss because Alive 3 is a fucking incredible record.
But I was just gonna ask you that. So, like, where's the disdain for Gene Simmons come from?
I don't approve of the way he. I think he's a very shrewd businessman.
Yeah.
I think Yeah, I don't know. It just leaves a bit of a gross taste in your mouth when you see that, like, what he charges for things, and it's not because it's worth that much. He knows he can charge that much.
And you could be and there's no end to the merch either. Like, you can literally be buried in a Kiss coffin if you fucking so chose.
Yeah, and you go, well, I mean, why would you do that? Like, I don't know.
Anything can become a product in Gene Simmons' world. Anything.
Exactly, and I think that's the issue I take with him. Is he goes, if I can make money from doing this, I will. Yeah, and that's like, you know, if that's how he needs to do it, then that's what he needs to do. He doesn't need to keep making the money. He couldn't possibly. They could be doing these shows for free.
Yeah.
They could be charging enough for a ticket just to cover the costs.
Yeah.
They could be doing this, like, you know, they've had a hugely successful career that made a fortune beyond, you know, it would make King Solomon blush. But they could easily just do cost price tickets and do this for the fans. Right. But they're like, no, let's go make a couple extra $1 million.
Instead, they want you to go take out a second mortgage on your house to come and fucking see them.
There's people that tour full time to make a fucking living, to make a bare minimum fucking living. Yeah. And then this guy's being like, I'm going to charge 50 times the going rate for a fucking concert show. Yeah. Yeah. So I can add another wing to my estate.
Since we're on the topic of them, though, like, you as a musician, though, like, when you see somebody like them, and you know, you certainly reference, you know, some of their earlier work and how great some of those early albums are, no denying that at all. But when you see them at this stage of their career, is it okay for them to be doing these shows, you know, but piping in backing tracks and using these, you know, I'm not a musician, but these smoke and mirror type tricks that they're doing, you know, to enhance their show? They've been taking a beating on YouTube. Bands like Motley Crue have been taking a beating. You know, is that cool when you go see that, or would you rather see somebody in the live setting and see it like kind of, you know, warts and all, so to speak? Well,
I mean, I wouldn't see bands play the backing tracks because I wouldn't fucking go to shows like that. Like, I wouldn't. Yeah, like, it's not up to me to decide whether or not it's okay for them to do it or not, because I'm not going to go to those shows. And I think there's enough evidence for people to realize that it's kind of a false representation of them as performers. Yeah. But I mean, it's up to the concert goer. Like, if you're buying a ticket to go and see Kiss, are you there for the spectacle? Are you there to watch musicians? Like, Jesus, if you're going to a Kiss show to watch musicianship, what the fuck are you doing? Like,
I know.
I mean, they're just there for the gig. They're there for the fireworks. They're there for the songs that they, you know, have been singing along to for 40 years. Who cares if there's a backing track? Right. If the punter doesn't care, then, you know, I'm not going to cast judgment on what a band does on stage that I would never in a million years go and see, because it doesn't affect. Right. Like, I wouldn't go and see. I mean, I'd go and see Motley Crue for the comedy. Yeah. Like, I think they're. Oh, who are they touring with? I think they're. They're touring Australia soon. With like Def Leppard. I think they're touring with Def Leppard.
Yeah, I've got tickets to see it in August here. So go ahead and laugh. But
it was like there was an article that came up and it just said like Motley Crue set to ruin a perfectly good Def Leppard tour.
Yeah. You're right. Because I'm mostly going to see them, and you know, apparently the bill is them, and they're sandwiched in between Def Leppard and Alice Cooper, who I've never seen, who I am kind of interested to see him. You know what I mean? So that's you know.
I mean, there's about as legitimate a performer as ever fucking existed. Like, Alice Cooper is the king of the stage show. Yeah. Like, I mean, that. Fuck, I'd go to that in a second.
Yeah, I know, no question about it. And I have to ask. You know, I would be remiss if I didn't ask. And I probably asked this again the last time, but again, I will put the caveat out there that there was no last time, because that episode got destroyed. But Andrew, cool enough to come on here and fucking do another one. So I gotta ask, you know, is there a timetable on new Harlott music?
Yes. So I was in the studio this weekend. I'm pretty sure last time we spoke, I had to rush off to the studio after we did the interview or something.
And I believe you've got some recent videos up on your Instagram of you in
the
studio.
Yeah, we've been posting little snippets to get people excited. So we're working on album 5 at the moment. Drums are done. I'm working on guitars. I think after we get back from tour in Europe, bass will happen, and then solos and vocals, etc. It's going to be a reasonably long process just because we all work. I think we're strictly recording on weekends at the moment.
Yeah.
So, 5 days of guitar tracking takes, a month.
Yeah. Right.
So it's going to be a while before anything's finished, but I would suggest, or I would hazard a guess at saying that by the end of the year, we should have maybe a single ready to kind of get people excited for an album release that I would assume will happen early next year.
Yeah, and if you could play devil's advocate and put your promoter hat on, and you could put your guys on a tour with somebody, what would your dream tour be? To go out on the road with?
All right, so I mean, obviously, Creator, that would be incredible. I would live. I would love to do that. Tell you what, look, I've been really lucky in life. In fact, that I've played with a lot of bands that I kind of were very inspiring to have been on stage with. We did 6 weeks with Annihilator in Europe, and that was perfect for us because that Annihilator filled every venue with diehard 80s thrash metal fans.
Yeah.
And we were just we got to get up on stage and be like, "You've never heard of us.
Yeah.
We're gonna play some music that you should like." And, it worked really well for us, and we got to tour Europe with Havoc, which I remember when I first heard Covering Fire, I was like, "Oh, hang up the fucking boots, guys! Like these guys have got it covered. We don't need to play new thrash. These guys are the best."
Yeah.
They were a great band to tour with, and just super humble, really professional, and just treated everyone like equals.
Yeah.
And we were a bunch of nobodies from Australia, but they were like, "Yep." But I'm pretty sure Dave actually had a say in picking us personally for that tour. So that was very cool. But I would love to tour with Dark Angel. We played with them in Melbourne, and they were the greatest guys. They were one of the greatest bands we've ever played with, just because of how down to earth they were. That'd be fucking fantastic. Creator would be perfect. I would love to just talk vegan love to get backstage and talk about vegan recipes with Mille.
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of want
Dark Angel, though. I gotta ask, though. I have to interject, because Dark Angel was certainly, a huge thrash band back in the day. But how active are Dark Angel as far as are they putting out new music, or do they just go out and just do old stuff?
They just do Darkness Descends to us, yeah.
They do, right?
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean,
no.
We can't. We discussed Kiss doing that first.
Yeah, I know.
I think I'm not sure how active they are. I don't know. Same with we played with Heathen recently, and we're playing with Exorder in Europe, and it's there's a lot of bands that they kind of had their moment.
Yeah.
There's bands that had their moment and keep going, and then there's bands that had their moment and now they're reliving it.
Yeah.
And either way, it's great. It's when it comes to wanting to support bands, there's if you want to play a show with a band, you got to think about a couple of things, how much do I love them, how much do I want to go see them,
right?
How great an opportunity would this be for us? Because you don't want to play an inappropriate I love Gamma Ray, I love power metal, but I wouldn't want to support them at a show because it makes no sense.
Right, wouldn't be a great bill. Yeah.
Yeah. So you kind of want to fit but you also don't want to I wouldn't want to open for Slayer.
Right.
Because who the fuck gives a shit about the guys who open for Slayer?
Right.
Slayer fans carve Slayer into their arms.
I know.
They're not going to be they're not going to stand there and go, "Hey, let's give these guys a chance."
Although they may appreciate you guys, though, because, and I'm sure this is not a big surprise to you, though, but you guys are very much in that same vein of a Slayer-esque sound.
And I would worry that thousands of Slayer fans would wish me dead for
even daring.
The
audacity to even dare sound like the mighty Slayer.
I think we would just get booed on that alone, for being much like Slayer. So you kind of want to walk that line of you want a classic thrash band that's going to have You want an audience that are just there because they love thrash metal, not because they're obsessed with the band.
But I'll tell you, a Harlot Heathen tour sounds absolutely phenomenal, though. I've had Craig on here, though. I mean, Heathen's a fucking great band, though.
Yeah, they were awesome, man. I love playing with them. I got no, they were great.
And Exhorter fucking is fucking amazing too. You know, a lot of people, and I had to ask, you know, early on when I started doing the podcast, I had Sasha, the drummer for Exhorter, on, and I couldn't resist asking, because there's always been that debate. You know, it's kind of like the chicken and the egg. You know what I mean? Did Pantera rip off Exhorter's sound, or was that sound? You know what I mean? Like, you know, because there were such comparisons to what Pantera did, but Exhorter had kind of had their foot in the door and done it first.
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, how did he feel about it? He was the one. He had a fucking cart in the race, or a horse in the race.
I guess I'd have to go back and watch the episode to what he said, though. but speaking of Pantera, though, because Pantera is also going to be coming to my neck of the woods. You know, do you like that reunion, or do you feel like it's a cash grab, or do you feel like it's, you know, it's good for the fans? Do you like the players that they got to fill the Abbott brothers roles? I mean, where do you stand on the whole Pantera? Call it whatever you want. I don't know if it's a reunion or a tribute or, you know, whatever.
How do I feel about it? I mean, do I think it's a cash grab? Obviously it is. I mean, it's a great way to make money. I mean, sure. But, you know, if people are going to go see it, like I said, it's up to the punter.
Yeah.
Like, it's got nothing to do with me. If people want to go and watch, you know, Phil and Rex play Pantera songs with, you know, arguably two of the, you know, better musicians in the world, then, you know, by all means, let them go enjoy it. Like, you know, Pantera was the brothers.
Yeah,
like, there's no arguing that. They, you know, the creative force behind the band and the signature sound. Like, Dimebag was, as a musician, he was formative for so many people, and he was unmistakable in the work that he did. But, you know, they're not creating new music; they're just going back and playing the classics. And if they've got people that can execute those well and give people a show that they would badly want to go to, you know, why wouldn't they?
And you know, with the new Harlot music that's going to come out, do you feel like, you know, without divulging too much, do you feel like, because I kind of have a theory that like all albums are kind of in a way, you know, conceptual or concept albums. You know, I feel like there's you know, you guys certainly set an album up with a certain cohesion and a certain you know, a certain cadence in the songs flowing into one another. You know, will the new stuff, you know, is there any kind of a concept that you have in mind when you're writing these songs?
Not. I mean, I like the idea of the albums kind of making sense. You know, artwork and title wise. I like the idea that it shows a progression of the band, but you know, all the songs are going to be individual concepts unto themselves. So. You know, the title will likely try and tie in with their with the progress of the other albums, but you know, literally, you know, song ideas wise, it's going to be, I would say, it's going to be very similar to the other ones in as much as a statement about the human condition of the state of the things in the world. So.
And now we talked about Portal a couple minutes ago. I want to ask you, as an you know, because they are so extreme. You know, you think of bands like Portal or like you know, Anal Cunt. I can never say the name of that band without wanting to laugh. But you think you see these bands that are just a lot of blast beats and a wall of noise. And now certainly thrash certainly lends itself to, you know, even though it's heavy, a great deal of melody. You know, can music sometimes be too heavy for the sake of being heavy, where it ceases to be enjoyable?
I mean, in my opinion is very much that is the case. I've got a threshold of heaviness. It's not very far into death metal before I kind of lose interest. Like a blast beat is not a good way to write a song. Like it's a great. I like blast beats when they kind of juxtapose against something. It's a blast beat should be an escalation. It should be like something needs to progress into that frenesity. If you just start a song with blast and it just goes the whole way through, I've got no interest in hearing that.
Yeah.
I certainly don't want to. I don't want to go see an hour of it live. That's too much for me to fucking handle.
Yeah.
But yeah, shit can easily get too heavy, as far as I'm concerned. I
feel like I almost feel like the old codger, you know what I mean? Like saying that, like, that old saying, like, oh, if it's too loud, you're too old, you know what I mean? So you start to think like, oh, fuck. But some of this stuff though, man, it's so heavy. And I have no problem with extreme music and heavy metal music, but certainly though, it can get heavy where like it's just like you say, why don't you sit there and listen to like an hour and a half of it? You know what I mean? It's more a fucking headache inducing than anything. Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, but I get that's how my brain feels about it. Like I've got mates that fucking chase that. They just want it as brutal as it can get. And, more power to them. It's not something that I can handle, but it takes all sorts, as they say. I've definitely got a limit to how much brutality I can handle in my music. And
now, who's the greatest band to ever come out of Australia? Is it AC/DC?
I mean, yeah, it depends on the yardstick by which you measure greatness. AC/DC are one of the all-time greatest, rock and roll bands in the history of the world. They're going to be, and they always will be. Yeah. No one's, I think those days are gone. Like the days of bands being that big are done. Like, yeah. Once all these bands call it a day, it's we're not going to see that happen ever again.
Yeah, I've asked musicians on here that same question, so it sounds like you kind of have the same opinion. Like like those iconic stars, like your Elvises, even, and your Princes, and your Michael Jacksons, and your Billy Joels. I don't even think you'll just. It seems like everybody's just lost in like a sea of anonymity, and you don't see those secular stars anymore.
Well, because it used to be such a calculated, like, a record label decision. It used to be like, here's our product, we're going to invest the following into it. They would get the radio play. They would, people had to listen to radio. Yeah. People didn't have like Spotify, and they couldn't just fucking find any music they wanted in their pocket at any time of the day. Like people would listen to the radio. They would listen to the bands that were being promoted by the record labels. So everyone would hear them, everyone would love them, and they would become as famous as they were because it was like, 5 things to choose from. Yeah. The way things are at the moment, it's easier than ever to get your music into people's ears. It's easier than ever to, record stuff yourself. You don't need a record label to pay for your studio time. There's home studio kits. There's direct input. People can do it all themselves. So as a musician, it's more accessible to record your own music, and it's easier to get it into people's ears. But as a result, it means that your fan base is horrendously diluted. The average person can listen to 10 times as many bands in a week as other people would listen to in their lifetime. Yeah. And it's at the tips of your fingers. So it's a double-edged sword. And of course, now that music's effectively free, like, you don't have to pay to listen to music. That's ridiculous. What an obscene concept. So now that there's no money to be made for it, like that's, everyone's fighting for the same, it's the same lack of pie. So yeah, those days are definitely gone. Those days of huge, you'll never see people screaming for the Beatles like they used to. Right. Like that's not going to be a thing anymore. People will still love, certain pop stars, but that's not a thing anymore.
Right. They're not going to be passing out and fucking fainting.
And because, when the Beatles came out, that was the first time people had seen anything like it. People were losing their fucking minds. Yeah. Because it was a bunch of boys from a little town in England. And it was like, they're doing something completely new, and they're young and they're cute and they're like rock and rolly and shit. And like people lost their minds over it. Those days are gone.
So you would love to be in concert up on that stage and maybe get hit by some bras or some panties being thrown at you. That would be nice, right?
I feel like the gentlemen of my shows are usually the ones wearing the bras.
Yeah, that is the part about heavy metal, right? It is a lot of guys there worshiping you.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of old Polish gentlemen that really want to shake your hand.
Doesn't lend itself to the chicks a lot, that scene. I know it's
look, it's doesn't bother me. If
as long as they're paying to get in the door, right?
If I wanted to do this for the women, I would have made some very different decisions a long time ago.
And this usually winds up being one of the tougher questions that I ask in my interviews, and I don't pull it out every single time, but I will pull it out with you here. Your desert island pick. We're dropping Andrew on a desert island, and he can only take one fucking album with you. And and Andrew, I want to tell you right now, none of this bullshit where you pick any greatest hits or compilation albums.
Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds.
Wow, you went so definitive. I like when a guy has a definitive answer, because a lot of people come on here and they wrestle with it. Even me, I asked the fucking question and I wrestle with it. I don't even have a fucking answer to it, because I feel like if I'm going to be on the desert island, and I've said this before on other episodes, I feel like I can't have something that's just going to be, one tempo or one speed all the time, because your emotions are kind of going to, especially, you're on this fucking island, you're going to be depressed some of the time, I mean.
100%.
So that's your album.
Yeah, that's my Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds. Jeff
Wayne. And what does Jeff Wayne do that resonates so much with you? He's obviously not a heavy metal guy.
No, it's the soundtrack to the War of the Worlds. I don't know if you've heard it, but it's incredible, and it's like not only is it that, but it's also telling the story. It's got narration throughout it. Like it'd double as kind of like conceptual entertainment, as well as it being phenomenal musicianship. It's got highs, it's got lows, it's got heavy bits, it's got like slow bits. I think it'd be perfect. And it's got a decent run length to it too.
And if I were to give you a second album, though, and allow you, because you were so kind to do a second episode with me, if I gave you a second album, are you taking Cause for Conflict?
Oh, you know what? Yes, I would take that one. I think that's a good 13 to 14 tracks. That's lots to get your teeth on. My fear would be if I took a Desert Island album, I would end up hating it.
Yeah,
wouldn't that be the worst thing in the world? You take your favorite album of all time and you hear it so much that you despise it. You start to associate it with the fact that you're marooned on a desert island.
You're marooned on a desert island. All of a sudden, Cause for Conflict is like the soundtrack to your death.
Mm. Imagine if you took Rain in Blood, and you were stuck on the desert island for 5 years or something. All you could listen to was Rain in Blood, and then you get rescued. Then you get rescued, right? Yeah. You get rescued. Life goes back to normal. You tell your story, you sell your sale, and then you can't trying to get on with your life, and then this happens. And then all of a sudden you're back on the desert island.
Yeah.
You have connections because you're transported back to this.
Yeah. I think they call that PTSD.
Yeah.
And that's not good if your favorite album. Yeah, that's not good if your favorite album causes you PTSD. I mean, I think that causes a big problem. Now, I'd like to know also, just really quickly, being in Australia though, how many run-ins realistically have you had with kangaroos?
So my backyard fence is there.
Okay.
So it's probably 10 meters from me right now. There's regularly kangaroos on the other side of it.
Okay.
I live next to a national park. You can see them from my balcony. If you go for a walk around the parks, they'll be hanging out. When you get close, they'll run out of your way. But
are they at all a danger? Are they at all a danger to people?
God, no, they don't give a shit about us. We don't really care about them. They jump in front of your car. That's the main concern. There's a rule of thumb in Australia: don't drive at sunrise or sunset. Okay. Because that's when they move. When the sun comes up, they wake up and they go to their feeding grounds. And when the sun goes down, they leave their feeding grounds, go back to have a sleep somewhere wooded. So at those times, they're moving across the roads.
And is there any kind of penalty where if Is that a hard, fast law? Like, what if you were to hit one with your car? I mean, can you hit them like with your car? Is that a common occurrence? Because like over here in the United States, we are constantly hitting fucking deer. I've totaled cars fucking hitting deer here.
Yeah, they fuck your car. They absolutely they annihilate your car. Wombats are a problem as well. Wombats are just like little bricks. If you hit them with like, if you've got like a sedan, it fucking annihilates them. There's no penalty for it, so far as I can tell. But yeah, it does a fair bit of damage. Particularly like if you hit them at speed, like if you're on 110 down a country road, one of them, and they move quick. Yeah, like they get upwards of like 40 miles an hour when they're like in full sprint. They can get in front of your car pretty quick.
And so you're saying that a kangaroo, though, like while it's not a danger to you, though, are they accessible to the point where, like, if you see them, like, you could walk up to them and they'd be receptive to being touched or petted or like whatever?
No. Like, there's petting zoo parks like nearby where you can go and they're like quite domesticated. Yeah. But they don't care that you're there, but they'll move when you get in a couple of meters of them. Like,
okay, so they're more scared of us then.
Yeah. They're wary of us. They're aware that they shouldn't be like right up next to us. Yeah. And if you got a dog, the dog will chase them. So.
Well, I'm glad to hear that a new Harlott album is coming out. I didn't want you to fall to the wayside and start to think you guys were like Metallica and you could wait 8 or 9 years between albums. You know what I mean? I was starting to think that maybe, maybe you guys were getting the rock star complex and I was going to be waiting forever for some new Harlott. But I mean, it sounds like it's around the corner.
Yeah, it'll be soon.
I'm glad, man. I really love that Detritus album, man. I can't stop fucking telling people about it. I'll grab anybody and fly the flag for you guys. I'll grab anybody that'll fucking listen. I was at work today. I work, my day job is in healthcare. I work as a nurse. And the cleaning guy today, the housekeeper that cleans the rooms, he walks around with earbuds all the time. I said, what do you got coming out of them earbuds all the time that you're walking around like listening to? I instantly fucking commandeered his phone, went to Spotify, and showed him your album.
I'll probably owe you some money.
You do, yeah. Well, don't worry, man. We'll settle up, man. Just some, just some minor royalties. You know what? If you make it to the States, just being on the list to come see the show is good enough. That's all. All right. That's all.
And maybe, I'll buy you a Foster's. Well,
yeah. Don't do me any favors. You keep the Fosters. I'll just take the ticket to the show and point me in the direction where I can get good Harlott. Here's what I envision. I want a Harlott hoodie. I'm a big guy for hoodies. Yeah. Is there any way we can work that into the merch rotation? I see a lot of great shirts. I got no problem with shirts. That's my whole wardrobe downstairs. It's just all band shirts.
We'll work something out for you.
Well, please. Yeah, please. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I would appreciate that. And what I do appreciate is you coming out here a second time and doing this, man. Thank you so much, brother. I know it was a pain in the ass, man. I'm glad you made the time. We got the big time difference between the two of us. I was absolutely fucking crushed when I lost all those episodes, particularly fucking yours. But I had some good ones on there. I had the guitar player from Agnostic Front, who are a legendary New York hardcore band. Yeah. I was gutted, man. You know what I mean? Like, I really was. But thankfully, as I said, everybody's been cool and receptive. And, that really fucking sucks. Yeah, I'll figure it out on my itinerary and I'll make it happen. So, and you were the first one, man. So I really appreciate you, man. Yeah. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking to you. And hopefully when the album comes out and we get closer to it, we can jump on here and we can do it again.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Andrew. I really appreciate it. Thank you, brother. All right. Later, man.
See ya.
Later. There he goes, folks. I can't say enough about him. That is Andrew Hudson, vocalist, guitarist for what is currently and looks like going to be for a long time my favorite fucking thrash band right now, Harlott. Put the 2 T's on the end. Don't forget that. HARLOTT, just like Rex Ruger, but I get 3 X's. Harlott gets 2 T's. Put some respect on that band's name because they are fucking incredible. Doing fucking old school thrash the way it should be done. Detritus of the Final Age came out in 2020. That was their last album. 2017, they did an album called Extinction. 2015, Proliferation. They're all fucking massive fucking albums. Face melters. Bangers. The albums are just filled with fucking just classic, phenomenal sounding old school thrash like 50-year-old guys like me fucking love. And trust me, anybody that puts these guys on, you will love them. I know I always do this on here for some bands. But I can't do it enough for Harlott, so I'm going to do 2 fucking Rex Ruger approved okay signs for fucking Harlott, man. Do not fucking sleep on these guys. They are the best thing going, in my opinion, right now in fucking thrash music. They're way over in Australia. So again, let me point out that Mr. International Rex Ruger has done it again, reaching out across fucking boundaries, across oceans to reach out to our rock and metal fucking brothers. And I couldn't be happier, man, to have gotten the chance to. Andrew, as I said, was one of the episodes that I fucking unfortunately had recorded and fucking lost. As I said, everybody's been receptive to coming on and redoing their episodes. Andrew was the first guy to agree to do one and clear some time on his schedule to come on and chop it up with me again. So I would have a proper Harlott episode to give to my audience. And so I thank him from the bottom of my heart, man. Such a fucking cool guy. And please go out and support everything that Harlott does. As you heard from Andrew, new music will be coming hopefully by the end of this year, man. And I can't stress it enough. I'm flying the flag for this band, fucking hardcore. I mean, I've got a small handful of bands right now that I really, really, really love. And I'm really, really trying to, catapult them, at least in my inner circle of people that I interact with. And Harlott is one of those bands that I am just fucking doing everything I can to just, implore people to listen to, because they are that damn fucking great. So I hope you guys enjoyed that episode as much as I enjoyed with chopping it up with Andrew Hudson. Thank you so much to him again. Go out and support fucking Harlott. Go check them out on the platforms. Go check them out. Buy their merch. Listen to their music. Support the boys, because they are a fucking force. And hope you guys enjoyed that. Until we get together and we do this thing again, and it will be soon, and there will be more kick-ass guests. But until that time, remember, kids, take it easy and keep it sleazy.